Chapter 796, Sharpening the Butcher Knife. Ma Jianfeng's posture was very low, since he was the one who needed help from the other party, and more so that his wastrel son had also offended said party. So, he stood outside the window and bent over to greet Tang Xiu with a smile while concealing the solid depressed feeling inside. Bam! Tang Xiu got out of the car and closed the door with his backhand. He looked at Ma Jianfeng and nodded. Yes, I'm Tang Xiu. May I know your name? I'm Ma Jianfeng. Jian as in development, and Feng as in a mountain peak.
Ah.
It turns out to be the head of Ma family. Pleased to meet you. Tang Xiu smiled. He was not an unbridled youth. The head of Ma family had been acting so humbly, and he could not return such amiable manners with arrogance, for a sane person would never slap the face of those who were smiling at him. Not to mention that the Ma family was also one of the top families in Tianjing, so it was not easy for Ma Jianfeng to act like this either. After shaking hands and some polite and amiable civilities, Tang Xiu slowly said, I've learned the reason why the head of Ma family would spend so much time and effort to see me. However, let's say the unpleasant things first. I don't know the current condition of the old patriarch of your family, nor do I know what his illness is, so I don't dare to give a 100% guarantee on if I'm able to cure him. Ma Jianfeng retracted back his smile and replied with all seriousness, I understand what you said, Divine Dr. Tang. Still, I hope that you can do your best. You could say that you're the last straw of hope that my father might be cured. We will do our best to fulfill whatever requirement you may need. That I can promise you. A gleam of surprise flashed in Tang Xiu's eyes. He waved and said, a doctor does have a duty to treat the sick and save people, so let's put my request aside for now. I've long heard of Ma family's good reputation, whether in Tianjing or in the country. You're overpraising us, Divine Dr. Tang, said Ma Jianfeng modestly. But I myself have a guilty conscience. I'm ashamed that my son has acted hastily and offended you. In retrospect, I will make him apologize and plead for your forgiveness. Your son. Tang Xiu deliberately pretended to be oblivious and put on a quizzical look. Ma Jianfeng was surprised and asked, You didn't know Ma Xiaorong is my fourth son, Divine Dr. Tang? Cold and indifference suddenly replaced Tang Xiu's expression. He even opened the car's door and sat back under the watchful eyes of the Ma family. He then looked through the window toward Mo and spoke, Bao, return to Shanghai. Ma Jianfeng's heart thumped. Dr. Tang, you are, he hastily said with a smile, I know it was all my son's fault. Please don't stoop to the likes of my good-for-nothing son and forgive his past wrongdoings with your magnanimous heart. You know, I originally thought the Ma family was as good as the hearsays, said Tang Xiu apathetically. Never did I expect that the juniors of your family are an utter disgrace. A friend of mine told me that Ma Xiaorong is the brutish scoundrel of Tianjing, relying on the little bit of power of the family to incite outrages. I've experienced his deeds too. Not only did he bully the waiting ladies at Mingyuan Resort last night, but he also ordered his bodyguards to surround me. If it weren't for my kung fu, I'd have been sent to the hospital by now. Ma Jianfeng was deeply shocked. Although he knew his fourth son was usually ignorant and incompetent, little did he think that he would be such a sissy to stoop down to this degree that he even bullied girls, and ordered his bodyguards to surround and beat up others. All of a sudden, Ma Jianfeng felt that his punishment for his wastrel son was too light. Had he learned earlier about it, he would have used his whip to flog him dozens of times, forcing him to clearly memorize the disciplining lesson of his family's ancestors. His thoughts were similarly shared with the rest of the Ma family's core members, who came together. All of them could hear every single word Tang Xiu said perfectly. For a while, every one of them looked angry, and their evaluation of Ma Xiaorong dropped in the extreme. In actuality, they too had done some shady and shameful business, but it was all for a reason, be it because of personal enmity or for some benefit, and also they produced good results. Yet, provoking trouble everywhere without any cause or reason, nor running amok to act against the law and reason like a tyrant, was something they had never done. Ma Jianfeng took a deep breath and solemnly said, "Dr. Tang, I admit that I've been so busy developing the Ma family that I neglected my responsibility to discipline my own son as a father. You can rest assured that I'll definitely have him under my control and make sure that he won't carry on his misdeeds ever again. Although I already punished him, it's still not enough, so I'll make him taste the consequences of his misdeeds later." Tang Xiu was silent for half a minute, pulled out a cigarette and took a puff after igniting it. As the smoke puffed out of his mouth, he said, "I may be able to cure and save your father, but the visiting fee will be indispensable. I hope you can accept my request." "That's only natural, and we accept." Yet, Ma Jianfeng was quite depressed. He was naturally a shrewd and astute person acting as the head of Ma family. How could he not sense Tang Xiu's vexed feeling and was preparing his butcher knife to chop down the meat of Ma families? And yet, he knew perfectly well that he couldn't blame him either. If it wasn't for his wastrel son offending him, Tang Xiu wouldn't have demanded such a ridiculous request since he was, after all, a divine doctor. And those who aspired and had become such miracle-working doctors were not only required to have excellent medical expertise, to turn the foul and rotten into the rare and ethereal, but they also had the most important medical ethics. The lips of the Ma family's core members behind him twitched, along with the secretly growing resentment in their heart toward Ma Xiaorong. If it wasn't for this good-for-nothing bastard, Tang Xiu wouldn't have thought to butcher them, would he? If, in the case that Tang Xiu's request was too much, they would definitely ask the family head to break that bastard's leg. They then left the highway service area in convoy and spent nearly an hour on the road before arriving at Ma family manor. As the 10-plus cars entered the interior of the manor fast, they directly stopped in front of the northernmost antique pavilion where the old patriarch Ma lived. Just as Tang Xiu got out of the car, his expression slightly changed. He could easily discern the pattern diagram of feng shui in the Ma family manor, particularly the antique pavilion in front of him, which seemingly featured an added finishing touch to activate and revitalize the entire feng shui of the Ma family manor. Attracting wealth and fortune. Thriving family with many prosperous members. Lifetime prosperity of the family. Tang Xiu finally understood why the Ma family had been able to drift with the wind and the current and developed to such large extent, so smoothly all these years. A family whose land had such feng shui structure arranged would never fail, even if the one at the helm was a fool. It was no wonder that just Ma Jianfeng alone had 4 sons. "Well, it seems that the ancestor of your family once met a very respectable noble." Tang Xiu turned to look at Ma Jianfeng and said apathetically. "What do you mean by that, Dr. Tang?" asked Ma Jianfeng, looking puzzled. "It's nothing. It's just I can't help but exclaim after seeing the characteristics of the feng shui structure of your family manor," replied Tang Xiu indifferently. "You also understand feng shui?" asked Ma Jianfeng, surprised and amazed. "If acting with modesty is not necessary, I can say that my achievement in feng shui is much better than my medical expertise," answered Tang Xiu with a pale smile. "The feng shui pattern of your family manor consisted of the east gate that attracts the purple qi of the rising sun, the north gate that is closed to contain the movement of fortune and wealth inside, the south gate that is directly connected to vast and brilliant future prospects, and the circuitry west gate, which will bring about thousands of offspring. Lastly, this pavilion in front of us as the center crux, which likely has a small spiritual vein underground that is continuously accumulating good fortune. If your father has been living here for years, I think I've figured out the cause of his illness." Ma Jianfeng gasped for cold air as he stared at Tang Xiu in shock. The feng shui structure of Ma family's manor was arranged more than 100 years ago by a feng shui grandmaster, who had a debt of favor to his family's ancestor. That feng shui grandmaster spent half a year of painstaking efforts to help complete the arrangement of this pattern. For nearly 100 years, no one had ever seen through the mystery of their family's land, Yet Tang Xiu was unexpectedly able to completely discern the entirety of their feng shui structure the moment he arrived. "You're right, Dr. Tang," said Ma Jianfeng hurriedly. "My father has been living in this attic for many years. His physical condition was originally very good, and he was as strong as a young man even though he was already 70 years old back then. But I don't know why his body keeps aging at a frightening speed since the end of this year. He is nearly in a continuous comatose state and occasionally wakes up now. Your Ma family has been blessed with good fortune and has been prosperous for 100 years. The accumulated good fortune is eventually condensed on one person, which is your father. So he was naturally very healthy back then. To think that he has once had a life free from disease and remained healthy even for so many years is really amazing in and of itself. It's really a pity." As he spoke up to there, Tang Xiu sighed deeply and strode into the pavilion. "Huh? The power of fate and destiny?" Right as Tang Xiu stepped into the door of the attic, he felt an intense power of fate and destiny inside, and it was a rather special power of fate and destiny, no less. Even though the richness was inferior to the enormous power of fate and destiny contained in the treasures inside his interspatial ring, this particular one fully obstructed his perception to sense it. He must absorb it. Tang Xiu silently circulated his heavenly art of cosmic genesis and absorbed this power of fate and destiny in this place. Without guidance from Ma Jianfeng, he paced forward step by step and went to the door on the second floor. He then pushed the door and directly entered the room as his eyes landed on an elderly man lying flat on the bed. The others were unable to see that the old man lying on the bed was being shrouded by the multicolored energy of the power of fate and destiny, but Tang Xiu could see it clearly. This power of fate and destiny was so strong that it extracted the old man's soul and life force. If this extraction speed were to be maintained for half a month, the elderly man on the bed would have his life force and soul completely extracted, and he would die. Tang Xiu turned to look at Ma Jianfeng and several of the most powerful members of the Ma family, and then lightly asked, "You are now faced with two choices. The first one is you can save his life, but you will have the roots of Ma family ruined. The second is that he will die, but the Ma family is guaranteed to continue flourishing for nearly 100 years. The complexions of Ma Jianfeng and the rest of Ma family members changed drastically, along with a horrified, dumbstruck expression. Ma Jianfeng's second uncle, Ma Qingye, an old man with very high authority in the Ma family, paced forward 2 steps at this moment. He stared deeply at Tang Xiu and asked with anxiousness all over his face, "Divine Dr. Tang, is there any probability that we can have both?" Tang Xiu shot a deep look at his eyes before he nodded and said, "The elderlies of your Ma family are very admirable, at least. You don't have the thought to fight and scheme against each other. There's another way indeed, but the price you have to pay will be quite great." Chapter 797, The Choice of Ma Family. "What exactly is the price we need to pay, Dr. Tang?" asked Ma Qingye without hesitation. "In the next 5 years, the Ma family will have no single member born. 10 babies under 3 years old will have a heart pattern on their glabella, and will share the good fortune of Ma family, but only one of them will survive. Your Ma family needs to collect magical tools with metal, wood, water, fire, and earth elements each in order to revitalize and accumulate the good fortune for 5 years, and lastly, one member of the family will have his or her lifespan reduced for 10 years to carry on the praying for the blessing," said Tang Xiu lightly. Hiss. Ma Jianpeng and Ma Qingyu, as well as the other 4 elders of Ma family, gasped at the same time, looking at Tang Xiu with a shocked expression. Wasn't this price way too horrifying? "It's not like you'll get no benefits at all if you choose this option," said Tang Xiu flatly. "The surviving child will at least become the hope of Ma family in the future. As long as there's no wicked feng shui expert to destroy the feng shui structure of your family, he can lead the Ma family to go further, become stronger, and be more prosperous." Ma Jianfeng was silent for a long time before he said with a wry, bitter expression, "This has great influence to the family, so I need to discuss it with the senior members of the family, Divine Dr. Tang." He can only endure up to half a month. Tang Shou pointed to the old man on the bed and plainly said, if you haven't made a decision by then not only he will die, but your family will also be in decline until your generation passes on his authority. Also, I'm going back to Shanghai quickly and will leave Shanghai tomorrow to manage some important things for an unknown amount of time. So, please discuss it only until this afternoon. Only until this afternoon? All the members of Ma family's expressions changed, and they quickly exchanged glances. Then, Ma Jianfeng solemnly said, could you diagnose my father too, Dr. Tang? Tang Shou nodded and went to the bed. He took the old man's wrist and checked his pulse to diagnose his physical condition, which was no different from his own prejudgment. As he left the room and came to the first floor, he said, give me a quiet room, I need to draw something. There's my father's study at the end of the corridor to the left, said Ma Jianfeng immediately. Tang Shou nodded and followed him to the study. As he walked in, he observed the antique study before his eyes landed on the writing brush, ink stick, inkstone, and paper on the desk. In this era, only a few people still had these so-called scholars for jewels, while the wall around the room was practically full of calligraphy and paintings from ancient and modern master calligraphers and master painters. Staying in this place would make one feel capable of appreciating the culture of Confucianism and Taoism. Is there anything else you need, Dr. Tang? Asked Ma Jianfeng. Cinnabar ink and yellow paper. If you're determined to save your father, I'll need 10 uncut jades as well, said Tang Shou. I'll immediately order my people to find them, said Ma Jianfeng in a deep voice. Also, I have to discuss this issue with the other family members, so I can't accompany you here. Go ahead. Tang Shou waved and said, just in passing, send someone to deliver some food here. Ma Jianfeng was stunned, as he suddenly remembered that it was noon and Tang Shou had not eaten yet. A smile then appeared on his solemn face as he acquiesced to the request and then left with the rest of the Ma family members. Mo Ao stood in front of the desk as he watched Ma Jianfeng close the door from the outside. Afterward, he asked with a lowered voice, do you perhaps prepare a butcher knife to chop them down, boss? The Ma family has so much wealth more than they needed, don't you think so? Asked Tang Shou back with a curled-up mouth, the faintest smile. You also know that I'm kind-hearted and generous, so I'm going to help them spend some money or share some other treasures. Well, you know, those kinds of good deeds. Mo Ao felt his heart twitch and speechlessly looked at Tang Shou. He had been following Tang Shou for not just 1 or 2 days. He saw his actions so many times that the means his boss had in order to butcher others made him shudder a little. Soon after that, fragrant meals were delivered as Tang Shou and Mo Ao had a meal and drank their fill. The Ma family then sent cinnabar ink and 10 fine pieces of jade. After sending them off outside, Tang Shou immediately began to draw the symbol's charm and manufactured some magical tools. At dusk, Ma Jianfeng came to the study room where Tang Shou was staying, a gloomy expression on his face. This time, he was only accompanied by his second uncle, Ma Chengya. Looking at their expression, Tang Shou instantly figured out what option they had taken. He sighed secretly inside, yet spoke with an indifferent expression, since you have made up your mind to give up the old patriarch Ma, then there's no need for me to do anything anymore. I've just manufactured good charms and magical tools myself, but since you don't need them, then I'll just charge you a service fee according to the market price. Ma Jianfeng took a deep breath first before he replied with a serious expression, it seems that you've already guessed the result, divine Dr. Tang. I was very much wanting to save my father, in fact. But I really can't do anything. The Ma family has many members, but for the entire family to have no descendant in the next 5 years as well as 10 children. I understand your difficulties. Tang Shou raised his hand to interrupt him and calmly said, all right, I will take my leave then. Also, someone will send you the money for the cinnabar ink and the jade pieces tomorrow, naturally. But Dr. Tang, do you have any means to temporarily maintain my father's life? Said Ma Jianfeng quickly. Just 10 months would be enough. I don't get you. Tang Shou frowned. Ma Jianfeng steeled his heart and gritted his teeth. The Ma family will have a lot of new members come of age in 10 months. As long as we have more than 10 new people by then, we will choose to save my father. Tang Shou squinted his eyes to carefully observe his face a few times, and then said lightly, I do have a way to make your father live for a year and a half, but you'll need to pay a lot of money. May I ask what price the Ma family can pay for more? What do you offer us to pay for, exactly? Asked Ma Jianfeng. Tang Shou squinted his eyes and blurted the bluff, I can double the time for him to live for a price. Hiss. Ma Jianfeng and Ma Qingye gasped and exchanged glances, while quietly calculating the price that was worth the lifespan to pay Tang Shou. After a long while, Ma Jianfeng said in a deep voice, feel free to speak your request, Divine Dr. Tang. Our Ma family will do everything in our power, as long as it's within our ability. Oregon. At least 10 pieces of precious ores of the size of a fist, plus 1 billion yuan, said Tang Shou lightly. Of course, if your family has some particularly strange objects that interest me, there's no need for that 1 billion. Ma Jianfeng thought over it for a moment and answered straightforwardly, 10 precious ores and 1 billion yuan, then. Please give us some time this evening, and we guarantee that they will be in your hands before 12 a.m. tonight. All right, concurred Tang Shou. He then came directly to the room on the second floor where the old patriarch Ma lived. Ma Jianfeng and the rest wanted to follow him, but Tang Shou stopped them. After entering the room, he took out a holy healing medicine and broke half of it and fed it into the old patriarch Ma's mouth. Then he walked to the side and sat down cross-legged. Half a holy healing medicinal pill was enough to greatly enhance old patriarch Ma's life force. Moreover, as long as this elderly man moved out of this building, it wouldn't be an issue for him to live for another year. Time ticked forward and 3 hours passed by. Tang Shou controlled his blood and qi to deliberately make his face look ghastly pale and sweats appear on his forehead. He looked at the old patriarch Ma, who had been breathing smoothly on the bed before he walked out of the room. Divine Dr. Tang, are you all right? After seeing Tang Shou's appearance, Ma Jianfeng's heart thumped and he hurriedly asked. It's all right. I'm fine. Tang Shou struggled to squeeze out a smile and said, it's just that I had to extract my qi and life force out and inject them into the old patriarch Ma's body, hence consuming much of my energy. Your father will be fine for the time being. As long as you move him from this attic and send another person to live here, he won't have any problem. Moving my father to live somewhere else is not a problem, said Ma Jianfeng. But why should we send someone else to live here? Human body itself is but the primordial beginning of the feng shui diagram, and only a select few gifted people are able to continue to accept the power of fate and destiny to ensure the Ma family will continue to be blessed in good fortune, explained Tang Shou. Otherwise, this feng shui structure of your families will not only give you benefits, but it can also make your family decline quickly. Nevertheless, prosperity is always bound to decline as the result of a heavenly Tao cycle. Ma Jianfeng instantly came to a realization, but he still asked, will the new person meet the same situation as my father's? Living here for a year and a half will not have disadvantages, but will obtain benefits instead. Tang Shou shook his head and said, as for what kind of benefits they are, you'll find out about it later. Then I'll immediately send someone else to move here once I move my father out, replied Ma Jianfeng immediately. Could you please go and stay in my father's study room and stay there for a while, Dr. Tang? I'll need to hurry up, but I'll come immediately when I'm done. You'll have 10 pieces of precious ores and 1 billion yuan, as promised, by then. All right. Tang Shou was naturally unwilling to leave the attic immediately since he had only absorbed less than 1/10 of the power of fate and destiny here, even though he tried his best to absorb it throughout the afternoon and night. If it weren't for him having something to do tomorrow, he would have tried to stay here until he completely absorbed all the power of fate and destiny in this place. It must be noted that the power of fate and destiny in this place was different from the one contained in the Qin Emperor's imperial Jade Seal treasure. The power of fate and destiny here was very gentle and didn't go crazy when he attempted to absorb it into his body, whereas the one contained inside the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal was enormous, and it drilled straight into his body. He had nearly blown himself up and would have died right as he attempted to absorb it. The Ma family indeed had good prestige and reputation. After waiting for half an hour, Ma Jianfeng had hurried back. He ordered 5 stocky men to put 10 precious ores in 5 trays on the table in front of Tang Xiu. He then waved, gesturing those men to leave, and immediately took out a bank card, saying, "Divine Dr. Tang, this bank card has 1 billion yuan and the pin is written on the back. Also, please appraise these 10 precious ores too. If any of these precious ores disinterest you, I'll send my men to exchange it." Tang Xiu put away the bank card in his pocket and reached out to lift the yellow cloth on the tray. Right as he looked down, the black stone was the first thing he saw. "This is..." Tang Xiu's heart thumped wildly as disbelief flashed in his eyes. Chapter 798, Going Alone. A demon stone? And also, a sealed demon stone, no less. Tang Xiu stared fixedly at the black stone the size of his fist with a thumping heartbeat. He believed the small coffin made of demon stone he had found before did not belong to this world, so he decided to use it less once he absorbed the demonic power inside it. At this moment, however, he finally realized that Earth may really have demon stone in existence somewhere, otherwise it wouldn't have been possible for another piece to be present here. He needed demon stone, and if he had a steady supply of this stone he could completely enhance his physical strength, and solidify it to the perfection of the first stage of Star's tyrannical body from the heavenly art of cosmic genesis cultivation. "Family head Ma, where did you get this ore?" asked Tang Xiu in a deep voice as he looked at Ma Jianfeng. Ma Jianfeng thought about it and answered, "I can't tell where we got it from specifically. My family has a lot of members and a lot of juniors obtain precious items from outside, then they give the items to the family in exchange for wealth or position. It's just that this one left a bit of an impression, as it's so strong that even a divine weapon can barely leave a mark on it. Then I may have to trouble you for help to ask where this piece of ore came from," said Tang Xiu after taking a deep breath. "If you can give a satisfactory answer, then I can help solve the old patriarch's problem, or the Ma family's problem, for free." Ma Jianfeng's face changed and he nodded without hesitation, "No problem. I'll check it out immediately." Half an hour later, however, Ma Jianfeng returned with a dejected look. He wryly smiled when he saw anticipation on Tang Xiu's face and said, "I've asked and checked it out. The stone was brought by a member of Ma family around 60+ years ago from outside, but he didn't leave any information about this ore. Also, he passed away more than 30 years ago." Tang Xiu nodded with disappointment. After collecting these 10 precious ores, he said, "Since the Ma's problems are temporarily resolved, then I won't stay for long. I'll visit your family again within a year and completely solve your family's feng shui structure problem then." "All right, let me send you off." Ma Jianfeng respectfully walked Tang Xiu out of Ma family manor. He watched the vrooming car leaving and then turned to look at the silent, stocky Ma Qingye, and thoughtfully said, "Second uncle, this Tang Xiu is definitely not simple. We were lucky that we haven't completely lost decorum with him, else I'm afraid that our family would be very miserable." "You're right." Ma Qingye nodded and said, "If he's just a divine doctor, there's indeed no need for us to pay that much importance towards him, yet he's also a feng shui master, which is rather extraordinary. Regardless of in this era or in ancient times, who dares to offend a feng shui master? In case that one's provoked such people, they will definitely arrange an evil feng shui diagram on the offender's ancestral tombs, which will invisibly kill them. Jianfeng, your 4th son is way too outrageous, and it occurred to me that you must severely punish him to give warnings to the others." Ma Jianfeng himself had already been disappointed with his 4th son, and he heavily said, "That little bastard almost ruined our family, and I'll severely punish him over this matter. I may have to trouble you to kick that brat to the ancestral hall for 3 years, so as to make him repent and turn a new leaf, second uncle." Also, we must spread the news that Tang Xiu is an honorable guest of our family. Whoever dares see him as an enemy will be enemies with our Ma family. Ma Qingye, however, looked hesitant and argued, don't you think your decision is rather rash? We have yet to completely check Tang Xiu's background. A smile appeared on Ma Jianfeng's dignified face as he replied, I just received a message 10 minutes ago. Can you guess what his identity is? What is it? Asked Ma Qingye quickly while staring at him. He's an offspring of the Tang family who was separated and lived outside for many years, answered Ma Jianfeng. It is said that the Tang family's old patriarch is very fond of him. You must know that he usually has a group of experts with him. I've asked the bodyguards of my fourth son and finally determined that there's at least one martial arts grandmaster among Tang Xiu's men. Martial arts grandmasters working for others? Ma Qingye was struck dumb. He immediately nodded and said, it should be correct, as only a family such as the Tangs can have such a great ability to send martial arts grandmasters to protect him. That night the news of Ma family's fourth son, Ma Sherong, being badly beaten and then severely punished by his family was spread quickly throughout Tianjin, and even several neighboring cities. A certain number of people with status and ability also obtained the news that the Ma's were on friendly terms with Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu. They had heard this name before as the young miracle-working doctor from Star City Chinese Medical Hospital in Shuangqing Province. There had been much news and coverage in various media channels about him. Mingyuan Resort. Ren Qi was listlessly nesting on the soft couch, quietly watching the news broadcast on the TV. Although he didn't work in the bureaucracy system, and there was no need for him to know some important political contents in the news, he still persevered on watching it because his father had instilled this habit of watching news from an early age. Knock, knock. A pretty young woman in a tulle skirt was at the door. She waltzed in with a lotus-like manner as her steps brought her in front of Ren Qi, and she smilingly said, Hey, what have you been thinking about? You just keep watching the news, and yet your mind is somewhere else. I just received the news, you know. Ren Qi forced a smile and said, It's said that fourth Ma just bumped into a solid iron sheet and is currently being punished by his elders, and it's quite severe at that. We won't be seeing him in the next 3 years. The young woman was surprised. What exactly happened? Isn't Ma Jianfeng, that Ma family's head, always doting on him so much? I dunno about the details, Ren Qi shook his head and said, but this is definitely related to Tang Xiu. Because shortly after the Ma family spread out the news that fourth Ma is being severely punished, further news had it that they are on very friendly terms with Tang Xiu, and whoever sees Tang Xiu as an enemy will become an enemy of Ma family as well. Those Ma family's old foxes can release such news? The young woman was shocked. It seems like they really have a very close relationship with Tang Xiu. It could be, but I might have made a bit of a mistake here myself, though. Ren Qi bitterly smiled. Why is that? Asked the young woman. You see, Tang Xiu came to our Mingyuan resort today, but I didn't even recognize him that time, explained Ren Qi. Little did I think that he's that young divine doctor Tang Xiu. Also, there's something you may not have learned. He's also the secret big boss behind the magnificent Tang Corp, and I've sent people to investigate something. He's a junior of the Tang family of Beijing, and one of the Tang's old patriarchs most doted upon juniors no less. Even if he has a very powerful background and identity, and you didn't recognize him, what gives, though? The young woman was still surprised. Sigh. You don't understand. Ren Qi shook his head and sighed. He's Long Jinglin's brother and they have a very good relationship. If I can make a good relationship with Tang Xiu, for the sake of Long Jinglin's face, it will bring about great benefits not only for me but also for our Ren family in the future. Don't forget the fact that the Tang family is a super family, which is one of the best in all of China. The young woman was also an astute person and understood everything instantly. Despite having no interest in networking and the benefits it could provide, She could still see that Ren Qi had just missed a great opportunity. Shanghai. After Tang Xiu returned from Tianjing, he immediately packed up his stuff and set off to Jingmen Island by overnight train. He bought a sleeping bag so he could pass the night sleeping, and when he changed transport and boarded the ferry he would arrive at Jingmen Island at noon. On this occasion, Tang Xiu didn't bring Mo and the rest because he only earned one quota to enter the 3-star vestige, thus he had no way to bring Mo and ordered him to stay in Shanghai. Before leaving, however, he had already informed those close to him of his whereabouts but only told them that he would have a long trip. He didn't tell them his destination. Jingmen Island. In the remote small port to the southeast, dozens of old fishing boats were on the shore with many fishermen smelling of fish. Wang Xiaodong had his own fishing boat, and he always went fishing in the sea diligently during this season, and then traded his hauls with fishmongers. However, there was no indication of going out to sea today despite the good weather and shining sun. He lazily laid on the deck of his fishing boat, resting his head on his hand's pillow, knocking his legs while watching the busy figures of the familiar people around him. Occasionally, a few fishermen came skimping with him merrily, and he responded perfunctorily. "Are you Wang Xiaodong?" A group of 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, stopped on the shore as the stocky middle-aged man among them asked him. Wang Xiaodong squinted and looked at him, and then immediately sprung up after having seen the person clearly. His eyes wandered away towards the 2 tall, beautiful women and shouted,
"Yeah,
"I'm Wang Xiaodong. Who are you? Anything I can do for you?" "I'm Zhu Long." The stocky Zhu Long jumped on the bow deck and took a stack of 100-yuan bills from his chest pocket, throwing it to Wang Xiaodong. "The deposit has been transferred to your bank card via the bank. I believe you've received it. You are crystal clear about our purpose and deal. We'll wait until our people arrive and then leave." With eyes lit up, Wang Xiaodong visually counted the stack of 100-yuan bills in his hand and estimated that it should be at least 10,000 yuan. With the thought that he just struck gold in mind, he happily put away the money and asked Zhu. "Big bro, Zhu Long, right? Well, easy money to get rich. I'm glad to serve you. Anyway, I already have all the things prepped, such as rations and water enough for us for 10 to 15 days at sea. By the way, how many people are going with you, exactly? My fishing boat can only take on a few people. Including the 4 of you, this babe can only accommodate 10 more." "There's only 1 person left," said Zhu Long indifferently. Wang Xiaodong looked relaxed immediately and asked again, "So pray tell, big bro, Zhu Long. You go to the sea this time to enjoy the magnificence of the ocean, right? I mean, looking at your demeanor and the attire you 4 are wearing, you all should be quite rich, but why would you rent my fishing boat instead of renting a luxury yacht?" Chapter 799, A Man Who's Lucky to Be Loved by Pretty Girls. "Don't tell me the referrer hasn't warned you yet that your task is only to be responsible for sending us to the Straits of Malacca," Zhu Long said coolly with an indifferent expression. "No matter what you see and encounter on the way there, you must not see it, nor hear it, capiche?" Wang Xiaodong sneered inwardly and even held some disdain. He was not blind, nor deaf. How could he possibly not see nor hear anything? He even cussed inwardly, playing mysterious, "Huh? I'm fucking sure you must be doing some damn dirty shit." The red-haired youth, Fire Devil, with a birdcage in his hand, interjected in a mystifying tone, "Hey, buddy, why on earth did you ask Boss Zhu Long about it? Just obey him. You got the money to get some work done for us, so behave yourself and do what you've been hired for. Dare to make us upset, and we'll kick you out to feed the sharks in the sea." Wang Xiaodong quivered and immediately turned wary. He knew that this red-haired youth was telling the truth, that they could really do something to him in the vast sea, and he could be persecuted to death unjustly. "Don't try to fuck with me. I've taken your photos and passed them on to my family. You'll be the suspects if I run into danger." Hearing Wang Xiaodong's words, which were full of fear, Fire Devil strangely chuckled twice. He turned to look at Zhulong and asked, "So, Zhulong Captain, what about that brat surnamed Tang? Is he still coming or not? We are 20 minutes to the agreed time here, and I don't think we should wait for a damn sissy if he can't arrive on time." Zhulong hummed twice and didn't answer his question. He also didn't want to wait for that arrogant prick. But it was, after all, an order from his chief, Duan Mulin, and he dared not simply kick out Tang Xiu either. The alluringly hot and beautiful Electro lady had long, loose, purple hair and sharp nails painted purple. She looked very cool, as though she was the embodiment of purple lightning. A faint smile appeared on her beautiful face as she spoke. "Well, it's so rare to see someone who can make Boss Zhulong angry and vexed. But that guy kinda interests me though. I'll take him into my seraglio if he's a handsome one." "You got my spiritual support, Electro lady." Fire Devil raised his thumb up. "Well, just hope this kid can be seen by you truly. He'll be a lucky man who can enjoy all the happiness in the world." Electro lady giggled and her willow-like, slender waist swayed. She threw a coquettish wink at Fire Devil. "Why don't you try to enjoy all the happiness of the world by being a lucky man who is loved by bells then, Fire Devil?" "No, no, no. I don't have that good of luck." Fire Devil was suddenly startled and backtracked agitatedly for half a meter, waving his hand and said, "Please don't. I don't have that good of fortune. I can't bear it." "Bah. Coward." Rolling her eyes, Electro lady snappily cussed. Her expression suddenly moved with a happily surprised look on her beautiful face. He pointed to a man walking in the distance, and chuckled, "You got small balls, Fire Devil, so this lady will let you go. My fresh young target is coming, and he's so handsome it makes me itch. Gimme 20 minutes, Boss Zhulong. I'll make sure that handsome fella kowtows under my skirt." Overruled. Zhulong growled in a low voice with a gloomy face. Electro lady looked dull for a moment before she snorted immediately. She knew perfectly well about Zhulong's character when carrying out a mission. Cautious, strict, and fiercely restrictive to his team members. Damn, too bad. She sighed inside but still spent some effort to memorize that gorgeous face. She hoped to meet him again in the future to then showcase her unique feminine charm and capture his heart. To her surprise, however, the handsome guy in her line of sight turned to head straight towards their location and even halted his pace on the shore. "Don't tell me, this is the guy who has poked Captain Zhulong's irk. The one he calls, unbridled, arrogant prick?" Tang Xiu shot a look at Zhulong and swept over several people on the bow before he immediately said, "I'm not late, am I, Zhulong?" "Humph." Zhulong snorted coldly and threw his head to the side. Fire Devil observed Tang Xiu a few times, and then quickly waved and smiled at him. "Hey, you must be brother Tang Xiu, right? Welcome to the party on this death voyage. Anyway, I'm Fire Devil, the one with all of the purple decoration is Electro Lady, and the one in the blue attire is Aqua Babe. By the way, I gotta let you know about Electro Lady seriously though. Well, she's the goddess to all of us men, and she also likes a dashingly handsome guy like you." "Shut up." Electro Lady angrily snapped and raised her hand towards Fire Devil, who got scared and hastily backtracked. Her expression then changed to that of a bright, smiling face and happily spoke to Tang Xiu. "Tang Xiu, right? Please ignore what Fire Devil said, he just throws his rubbish talk as always. Anyway, I'm glad you can join us, and we'll have to rely on you to protect us, weak women." "Nice to meet you," replied Tang Xiu calmly and then boarded the fishing boat. Electro Lady came to Tang Xiu's side. Although every twinkle and smile she had was showing her feminine charm, Tang Xiu didn't even spare her a glance. Of course, it was a different story had it been another man, as they would have already have been mesmerized by her. But who was Tang Xiu? He was once powerful supremacy, the supreme who stood at the summit in the immortal world. Let alone Electro Lady, even the alluring enchantress of the ninth heaven's nymph race could never captivate him. All right. Set sail. Zhulong stiffly ordered and turned into the cabin. The fishing boat was not big, just a common vessel for offshore operation. It usually had a dozen-plus people whenever it sailed to the sea for fishing, and it returned with a full load nearly every time. Today, however, it only had a few crew members, only 4 people including the owner, Wang Xiaodong. The sail was hoisted and ready to set sail. The fishing boat was not very fast and gradually vanished from the port amid the rippling waves of the ocean. After a full day of sailing, they would sail into the Straits of Malacca area the next day. Although the entire strait was only 1,080 kilometers long, the southeastern part was connecting the Pacific and the Indian Ocean, while the 3-star vestige was located at the junction. The coordinate location was very distinct, so it didn't take long before the fishing boat approached a small island. Something strange. I used to come here in my elder's fishing boat several times and landed on this small island. Rarely has this island had people's footprints. How come today, it has so many boats stopped here? Wang Xiaodong stood on the bow deck sweeping over the tens of ships of various types in front of him with surprise all over his face. Some of these boats were yachts, some were liners, cargo ships, but none of them was a fishing boat. Zhulong took his military backpack and came to Wang Xiaodong's side. Wait for us here. If we haven't come back from the island in 5 days, don't wait for us any longer and immediately set sail back. Do remember not to have any conflict whatsoever with those people on the other ships, nor easily have any contact with them. But why? Asked Wang Xiaodong, confused. These people will likely have ill thoughts about you if we can't come back alive, sneered Zhulong. Wang Xiaodong shuddered. He could keenly see 2 stocky black men with guns on the nearby liner who coldly glared in their direction. Those were guns. Who are these people? How dare they bring a gun openly? Is this a major gathering of some underground organizations? He secretly made up his mind after mulling over for a while. He would not take the money he hadn't yet received and would sail back right after Zhulong left them. Money was important, but it was nothing compared to his life. Tang Xiu was last to disembark. He could see Wang Xiaodong's faintly paled face and his attempts to secretly glance at the stocky armed black man over there. He then coolly spoke to him, "You'll probably be in for even bigger trouble if you sneak away after we leave. If we were to die here, then you'll be fine. But if we're able to get back, we can find you even if you run away to the ends of the earth." Wang Xiaodong's heart instantly plunged deep into an ice hole. He looked at Tang Xiu's cold face, forcing out a smile and said, "I know what I must do, Mr. Tang." Tang Xiu patted his shoulder and suddenly whispered right into his ear, "That Zhulong fella is too arrogant, isn't he? He doesn't want to say anything to you, but I can tell you something, though. We are actually members of the special entity of our country and are ordered on a mission here. Once we've accomplished our mission well, our country will be enormously benefited. So, even if it's not for you, please do it for our country." "They are from the government?" Staring at Tang Xiu with a shocked face, Wang Xiaodong's heart was struck with tempestuous waves. He instantly realized the identity of Tang Xiu, Zhulong, and the others. Even if they were not from special forces, they should be agents. I'm working for such people? Some pride suddenly filled Wang Xiaodong's heart. The excited emotion surged up inside him as he watched Tang Xiu, who jumped to the shore and said loudly, "I'll be waiting for you, Mr. Tang. I also won't receive the rest of the money. Count it as my contribution to the country." "Great, you're a true man." Tang Xiu turned around, raised his thumb up to Wang Xiaodong before he ran to catch up with Zhulong and the others. As a matter of fact, Zhulong's group could hear Tang Xiu's dialogue with Wang Xiaodong perfectly. They were all elementalists, ability users whose hearing was 10 times better than that of normal people. Even though they were somewhat annoyed that Tang Xiu leaked their identity as the state's people, they also realized that Tang Xiu spoke to Wang Xiaodong to prevent the latter from leaving and casting them off here. This guy is quite meticulous. Zhu Long might not like Tang Xiu, but he had to admit that he inwardly admired what Tang Xiu did. The group of 5 carried their simple backpacks and walked along a bare track towards the island. The island only had scarce vegetations, and there were nearly no big trees, even if one were to take a broad view. There was only a layer of green vegetation, and that was the type that grew in rocky crevices and damp places. At a few kilometers ahead, Tang Xiu could see a tent in the distance. There were clothes with different colors, various designs, as well as soldiers in military uniforms of different ranks who sealed off the surroundings. He saw that those military uniforms were ones worn by Chinese soldiers. Chapter 800, Degree of Danger. There were 10 countries eligible to explore the 3-star vestige in total according to the situation Tang Xiu was informed of, which was also the world's strongest top 10 countries. Therefore, the total number of people who could enter the vestige was 50 people, though Tang Xiu didn't know exactly how many ability users and their abilities each country had sent. Hello, I'm Gao Hengxing, the commander of China Army in Haiben Island. Which of you is Captain Zhu Long, please? A middle-aged man came out of the olive-green tent with 2 military officers and walked towards the group of 5. Zhu Long saluted and said, I'm Zhu Long, the captain of the exploration team for this 3-star vestige. You're here, at last. Gao Hengxing smilingly said, the 3-star vestige will be jointly opened tomorrow, and the people from other countries have also arrived. Come with me. We have your equipment prepped, and I'll send it to you later, so my mission is half done. Zhu Long nodded. He didn't introduce Tang Xiu and the rest, and directly followed Gao Hengxing into the military tent. The military tent was quite spacious. There were 7 soldiers in duty uniforms sitting in front of a row of LCD screens to observe the pictures on them. On the other side of the tent, 5 military bags with bulging sacks were laying on the ground, and apparently contained many items. Dismissing the civilities with Gao Hengxing, Zhu Long walked directly to the military bags. He quickly unzipped them, poured all the contents out, and carefully inspected them before he nodded with satisfaction. Everything's okay. Thanks for the hard work, Commander. The ceremony is not needed, Captain Zhu. I'm also acting on duty. Gao Hengxing shook his head and happily said, also, please do say if you have anything else you need before leaving. We'll try our best to provide it. No. Just as Zhu Long spat out a word, Tang Xiu's voice interrupted him. His face turned a bit ugly in that instant. Tang Xiu completely ignored Zhu Long. He looked at Gao Hengxing and asked, I have a request that I hope you can help with, Commander Gao. Gao looked at Tang Xiu in surprise and nodded. Please do say if you have something to ask. I didn't see any ships from the military when we arrived. Did you come here with air transport? Asked Tang Xiu. Are you responsible for sending us back once we come out of the 3-star vestige? We did come here by helicopter and our mission is to be stationed here all year round, together with other countries' soldiers, to seal off this 3-star vestige. Gao Hengxing shook his head. But mobilizing helicopters are out of my jurisdiction, so I have no way to send you back. If so, I'd like to ask you to send your men to the coast and temporarily detain the fishing boat's owner who sent us here, said Tang Xiu. Else, we won't be able to go back once he and his crew leave. It will waste quite a lot of time by then if we go back and need to wait for people from the mainland to pick us up. That's just a minor matter, leave it to me. Gao Hengxing smiled. Zhu Long gazed at Tang Xiu with a sneer, and so did Fire Devil, who looked to have some contempt. Even the Electro Lady felt that Tang Xiu was fussing over nothing. Only Aqua Babe, whose brows slightly pressed together thoughtfully, gazed at Tang Xiu. You seem to care so much about going back early, asked Aqua Babe suddenly. I am. Tang Xiu glanced at her and replied indifferently. I want to go back early from this place. I have other things to tend to. Aquababe didn't speak again and just nodded in response. Her eyes moved somewhere else, but Zhu Long, who knew her, looked surprised and slightly pressed his brows. The atmosphere was somewhat odd and Gao Hongxing seemed to realize it. Whether it was Zhulong and Fire Devil, or Aqua Babe and Electro Lady, there seemed to be something between them with Tang Xiu, yet couldn't be explained with words. It was like, there was distance, in a sense. Nevertheless, he didn't want to get involved much with this 5-man team, and solemnly advised, everyone, you have a single tent for each of you nearby with your name on it. You can stay there first, and I'll take you to the submarine location tomorrow morning. Submarine? Tang Xiu's expression changed. Although he knew the 3-star vestige was deep in the sea, he didn't expect that they would be sent there by a submarine. He did have some interest in this big chunk of iron on the seabed. After all, it was a type of essential technological weapon in ocean warfare. After everyone took their respective military bag out of the tent, Tang Xiu unleashed his perception and instantly covered a radius of 300 to 400 meters. He could clearly see all the scenes and people within this range. However, he couldn't tell which people from other countries would go to the seabed to explore the 3 vestige, though he easily found his own military tent. I'm afraid of sleeping alone at night, Tang Xiu. Can you? Electro Lady came to Tang Xiu's side. Her waist was like a writhing water snake, and there was a particular kind of thirst in her eyes. Don't play that little trick with me. Tang Xiu raised his hand, waved and said, you're obviously still a virgin, yet you act and show yourself like this. If I were to control and take your body, I'm sure you would be hell-bent to kill me, wouldn't you? Stop messing around with this boring game, Electro Lady. We haven't yet entered the 3-star vestige, so you'd better recharge your batteries and adjust yourself to your best condition. Electro Lady's face greatly changed and a look of fear suddenly appeared in her eyes when she looked at Tang Xiu. She had some contempt for Tang Xiu before this, but what he showcased just now was definitely not that of a fool who knew nothing whatsoever. Tang Xiu ignored her and drilled straight into the military tent. Inside, he unzipped the military bag and inspected the things inside. A Mitsubishi Army knife, mini binoculars, a lighter, a box of matches, diving suit, oxygen mask, compressed biscuits and water, and the last, which was unexpected, a mini pistol. Does this gun have no clips at all? Tang Xiu frowned as he slowly and carefully inspected it for a long time, only to find that the gun truly didn't have a cartridge clip but something like a cell phone battery inside instead. Unable to figure out what the gun truly was, Tang Xiu had no intention of testing it either. He stored everything into his interspatial ring, but left the diving suit and oxygen mask in the military bag. Shortly after, he sat cross-legged and began to adjust his condition. Outside the tent, Aqua Babe silently came to Electro Lady's side. As she saw her ever-changing expression, she softly spoke to her in a low voice. I don't know what his true ability is, but he's the only one who gave a threatening feeling. I don't know why I have this sensation, but there's no way I can look down on him. Electro Lady frowned and glanced at Tang Xiu's military tent before turning back and said indignantly, who knows if that bloke is just faking it? A threatening feeling? Why can't I sense it then? I think Boss Zhulong is right. He's an arrogant prick, one who knows nothing about the immensity of heaven and earth. Just wait and see later, Aqua Babe. He will weep when we enter the 3-star vestige. Aqua Babe's face was a bit solemn, and her eyes swiftly swept from the surroundings, shaking her head and said, that's actually the second thing that makes me wary, Electro Lady. Take a look around. Can't you see there are none here from the other countries after we came? There used to be someone come to provoke us given their styles of action in the past, right? Electro Lady's heart sank. She looked around and didn't find anyone from other countries who were going to enter 3-star vestige either and immediately said, you're right. We must keep our vigilance. The next day, Tang Xiu came out of the military tent and saw Zhulong and the rest were sitting together, chatting in whispers with hand-painted drawings laid out in the center. He approached them and the 4 people seemed to not mind him, so he joined the discussion. We don't know what things, nor the kind of danger there will be beyond this steel door. So, look for any switch there as best you can, if any. Do remember, we must find the monitoring room fast. As long as we can find the control room, we can see the situation inside the vestige clearly, and it will be easier and more suitable for our actions later. There's one more thing. Stay alert and guard against those from other countries. Regardless of any goodwill they show us, keep a distance from them. The dangers we'll face once we enter the ruins are not the only dangers inside, but also from other countries' experts who enter with us. Tang Xiu was sitting cross-legged between Fire Devil and Aquababe. His eyes inspected the hand-painted map and inquired, "Is this the map for the 3-star vestige interior?" Regardless of how much Zhu Long didn't like Tang Xiu was still a Chinese national after all, so he still explained in order to let him survive longer. This 3-star vestige had once been opened and various countries sent a lot of people back then, but only one person came out alive. That man was our Chinese national and a martial arts grandmaster. Unfortunately, his injuries were too severe when he escaped, and he only woke up for a short time on the 3rd day before he passed away. And this map is what he brought out. "So, have you found out how big this 3-star vestige is?" asked Tang Xiu. "I dunno. It's said that this map is only a small area of the vestige." Zhu Long shook his head. Estimation is that it's not even 1/10, but even such a small area is more than a dozen football fields wide. Tang Xiu's expression changed. He glanced at the northeast and slowly said, "Perhaps, we need to raise the degree of danger to double time when we enter this 3-star vestige." Fire Devil raised his hand to caress the striking fiery hair on the lower back of his head and said disdainfully, "Don't be an alarmist, will you? It may be dangerous for you, Tang Xiu, but it's not worth mentioning for us. If you're afraid, don't act like a big shot, but has nothing to back yourself up, and just follow us. I'll protect you nonetheless." Tang Xiu pondered for a moment and nodded. "I'll follow you in the early stage of entering 3-star vestige, but I'll go alone after solving some of the dangers." "Whatever." It was Zhu Long who answered Tang Xiu with a bad tone. He thought that Tang Xiu was afraid. When they entered the vestige and came across various dangers, he felt this guy wouldn't dare to say anything about leaving the team anymore.